Welcome to the ODDSBREAKER'S #1 place for shared, sharp betting information.
Welcome back to podcast 52 of 2020. I'm your host, Kiev O'Neill. You can follow me on Twitter at OBKiev. Follow us at The ODDSBREAKERS and follow us on social media / The ODDSBREAKERS. This episode is being brought to you by MyBookie.ag. For a 50% sign-up bonus, please visit MyBookie and use the promo code ODDSBREAKERS. Terms and conditions apply. If you'd like to help us out and sponsor the website and the podcast, we would love to help you out. Please visit theoddsbreakers.com, click shop, and become a member. For $17.99 a month, you can get my plays and premium plays before the line moves. If nothing else, please visit theoddsbreakers.com and become a free picks newsletter subscriber. My friends, we had a fun weekend of football. It was great on Saturday, was down on Sunday. So I'll explain a little bit more about that. We'll get into some of the recap of these games. Unfortunately, I came down, and you can probably tell in my voice, I'm actually sick. On Saturday, I woke up with a massive coughing fit. Couldn't even really catch my breath. It was painful to breathe for a little while. And had a fever. It was probably 100.8 or something, nothing terrible. But you know what I'm thinking when that happens. And my wife's here, and you know she's like, well, go to the doctor. So I was ended up able to clear it up, take some ibuprofen, and go to the doctor. And I went to the doctor and got checked and everything, and I'm almost certain, I have the COVID-19 and everything. And the doctor's treated many COVID patients, she said, hundreds of them. And I was like, if I have COVID, can I get hydroxychloroquine? She's like, no, you can't. So I was like, oh, that's great. But she doesn't think it works. But anyways, she said, you look pretty sick. You look like you have a virus, but I doubt it's COVID. And I'm thinking to myself, well, why would she doubt that? Then, she takes my swabs my nose, both sides, comes back, and, I'm expecting everything to come in all positive. And she says, nope, you are negative for COVID. And I'm like, well, how did you know? And she's like, well, if you had COVID, you probably wouldn't be that sick. I'm like,
come on, don't bullshit me.
But she's treated hundreds of patients, and actually it kind of makes sense. My friends have had COVID, and none of them were that bad. Even the 90-year-old ones were fine. She only had one person go to the hospital out of hundreds, and that person was probably paranoid, she said. And I was like, oh. Well, it makes me wonder why nobody's saying this. Nobody's really being outspoken about this whole thing. And it kind of frustrates me a little bit because I didn't think to answer that. I was more kind of relieved that I didn't have to freaking quarantine my family for 14 days. We are going on vacation in about 2 weeks anyway. But at the same time, I wish I would have been like, well, why is more doctors not speaking up about this? She called it a massive overreaction. And I guess the reason, if I could guess, would be the fact that the HMOs that pay their bills, that pay them, they've always been kind of in bed with the government a little bit. And they're also kind of in bed with making money off these types of paranoid situations. So, in my opinion, if a doctor comes out and disclaims something and one person dies, they probably could get sued. And it just creates this whole massive disinformation system that you're seeing in sports right now with people testing positive for COVID, yet games are getting postponed. Everything like that, just completely postponed, when probably 100% of the time, these teams probably could have played. Literally. That's what's going on right now with this whole silly-ass COVID thing. But at the same time, I am happy that the Big Ten's back. It looks like the Pac-12 is trying to come back. It even looks like the Mountain West and the MAC are trying to make a comeback as well. So, more information to come about that. Hopefully some of that news will be breaking because we love our college football and we want this world to go back to normal. So in summary, the government, the media, and 2020 can all
kiss my butt.
let's get into a little college football recap. And we're going to start with one of our plays that we gave out. Our free plays went 2-1. We have the Navy midshipmen coming back from a huge deficit last weekend. 24 points, 24-0 it was at half. 24-0, and Navy comes back and actually wins the game.
Unreal.
It's funny about that. I was just complaining to Ralph Michaels at halftime. I was sitting there at the Chick-fil-A drive-thru getting some chicken sandwiches from a family, complaining to Ralph Michaels about how shitty Navy is, and Navy switches their quarterback at halftime, right? They switch him out, and they bring in a man named Dylan Morris, who passed for more yards than Tulane did. He was awesome at passing the football. A triple option team. They jumped him, and Navy's defense completely played a lot better, making them win the actual game. That was probably the highlight of the Saturday. I think we were about 6-4-1 or something in Saturday, something like that. The Duke game was our only loss. I was actually really hoping that I predicted the line move there, and I was wrong. The sharp money did come in on Boston College right before the game, driving that number all the way down to 3. So I was kind of trapped at the -5.5. I was hoping it was going to hit a 7.5, and buy back and send that out. But my bad on that one. But Duke just not quite as good as what was suggested. Yet the box score is a little bit off, and we'll get into that on our misleading final scores. And hopefully you'll find some value in that, as well as college football betting spots. A big upset that happened within a division, the Conference USA. Liberty destroyed Western Kentucky on the box score, 130-24. I mean, their total yards was like 440 to like 200 and something. And it was like 440 to 291. Something crazy, right? Now it's 480 to 291. That's what it was. Just destroyed them. And Liberty was probably my biggest jump in my power ratings last weekend. We were on some smelly, ugly dogs. Premium subscribers will tell you. But if you remember our first podcast of last week, we had Tulsa covering that 23. Well, then that thing got up to 24 by game time, so I hope you got it. Tulsa actually almost beat Oklahoma State outright. And Oklahoma State did lose Spencer Sanders, and we're going to monitor that injury. But at the same time, that game was pretty close, and Tulsa was beating them up with Spencer Sanders. So I think I was on the right side of that game. Just a real smelly dog you had to hold your nose for. Syracuse was as well. Tried to middle those both on the second half. I don't know if you saw that tweet. We ended up middling the Tulsa one, but not the Syracuse one. But when you do that, it at least kind of just takes that pressure off you if you're just biting your tongue a little bit trying to cover. So you're shooting, you're still gambling because you're shooting for a middle, yet you're doing it for less if you lose, middle for half, and kind of a fun little thing to do. Hitting middles is extremely exciting for the advanced sports bettor out there. Middle Tennessee State, we were on the sharp side of that. We had that +3.5. It closed at 2, and Troy destroyed them. I was a little worried about that, but Troy looked the part. Troy looks like an improved team this year, so I'm going to keep my eye on Troy coming into later this year. SMU, I gave out a team total as a free play. I didn't give it out as premium, over 42 points, and they ended up scoring 65 against North Texas because North Texas plays way faster, like Kyle and I said on our Friday video podcast. So keep that in mind. If you haven't watched our show, Better Odds Sports Betting on Fridays, mostly on Fridays, we retweet it Saturday morning. It's kind of last look at the lines. Please subscribe to our Twitch channel at Odds Breakers, and please subscribe to our YouTube channel at the Odds Breakers. It'll also be live streamed on Twitter. Louisiana Tech was a lean at +5.5, but they ended up winning outright. Texas State finally got that first win. They were 1-2. They deserved that a long time ago against Louisiana Monroe. Wake Forest was a sharp play, and they lost outright to NC State. And our biggest play, the Miami Hurricanes, were absolutely fantastic. We took the over 62. That thing closed at 65.5. Not a big deal because this thing went all the way to 81 points. Miami plays fast. I was a little worried that Louisville wasn't going to score only 6 points in that first half, but they eventually got together and was able to put 28 up in the second half to help us hit that over. But Miami's defense has improved, so I'm going to warn you a little bit on Miami. They play super fast, but they also have a very good defense. Miami is one of my biggest power ratings upgrade, and they might be the most improved team in college football, probably for sure in the Power 5. All right? Miami is someone I don't want to stand in the way of the way they play. You know, they play Florida State. They're a big favorite this weekend. It's probably like 11 points. It's still a little low, but I'm not sure if I'm going to take that one. It feels like a trap to me, but if I had to take it, I definitely would take Miami. I can't take Florida State there. Mike Norvell also has COVID, so he's probably not even with his team right now. Maybe I should take it. Shit. All right, next one. We have, that pretty much sums it up right there. Louisiana almost lost to Georgia State, by the way. And I did want to mention that was a letdown spot for Louisiana. I should have bet it. I didn't because I thought Georgia State was so bad. Even in a letdown spot, Louisiana should cover 17. Well, they barely won by 3 points in overtime. So that would have been a sweet-ass money line play for somebody that sprinkled that. If they bet Georgia State, just betting on straight-up letdown spots. Betting on letdown spots is a profitable thing in the long run, by far. UFC was good to us. We were 3-2. We had 3 plays on the Khamzat Chimaev fight under 1.5 rounds, hit at -125. Khamzat to win within the distance. -170 was our big 3.5 premium play. And then we also, for premium subscribers, had a unit or a half unit on +150 for Khamzat to win in the first round. So that was fantastic. The other 2 fights, we lost on Spawn. I don't know how the hell he lost that. He almost knocked out Walker. And somehow he had a big roundhouse and missed. And Walker just elbowed him in the freaking face. It was such a weird fight. That was the one we lost on. And then we lost barely because Woodley gave up. I had Covington to win in a decision. And he was so close. And Woodley just quit. In the 5th round, he was beat. He was beat, but quitting, I mean, it's not like he was on there getting his face pounded in at that second. He kind of quit. We only had like a minute or 2 left, and it was just kind of like, oh, I couldn't lay the -350 on Covington to win. We tried for the -150, but oh well. We were 3-2 in the UFC. We still keep planning on pounding the good old UFC because we've been very profitable in it. Let's get to the smelly NFL. After a nice 7-3 start, we lost the Thursday game and got backdoored from Cincinnati. Thank you very much, Cincinnati. Joe Burrow was like 5 for 6 and 4th down, something ridiculous. And that hurt. And then we went 3-6 on Sunday. We have one more play coming tonight. So hopefully that comes into fruition and keeps us in the nice green or in the black, whatever, positive in the NFL. Always nice. Anyways, a little recap in the NFL. We'll start with the Chiefs. And I'll tell you right now, the Chiefs sleptwalked for 3 quarters in that game. They did not care at all. It was a division game. I don't even think Mahomes completed over 1 pass in the first quarter. I mean, they just looked completely lethargic. I mean, they had 10 days to prepare. This is a betting spot, right? Then you find out that, you look, the Ravens are ahead of them, but I knew that it's not a look-ahead spot when it's a division game normally, right? That's how much they had respect for the Chargers, was absolutely none. They looked ahead past the Chargers to the Ravens or something. I would have never factored that in as a look-ahead spot in the past, but these things happen. They Justin Herbert went in. He is better than Tyrod Taylor. And if Tyrod is healthy this week and he's starting, I will be fading the Chargers against Carolina. Just telling you that. But at the same time, they weren't prepared for Herbert. They were more prepared for the dinking and dunking from Tyrod Taylor. And Herbert came in there. He's a big, tall guy, can see the field. He's the better quarterback there. I wonder how long it's going to take Lynn to figure that out because, man, you saw a huge coaching mismatch there. We had some line value at -8. A little bit pissed off about that one. The officials swung the Bears game 10 points because they don't know the rules. I cannot believe in this day and age, the official that throws the flag literally does not know the pass interference rule. Eddie Jackson went and intercepted a pass and took it in for a touchdown. His shoulder grazed the wide receiver as he was catching it, just grazed him a little. And they called that pass interference instead of that touchdown. The Giants drove down and scored a field goal. Swung the game 10 points. If you watch that Malcolm Butler play against Seattle in that Super Bowl, it was way more intrusive than that when Russell Wilson threw that ball. He plowed the receiver over to catch that. I mean, literally in 2020, these officials don't even know the rules of the freaking game, and you can't replay it.
Unreal.
I mean, yes, I complain a lot about the officials, but the reason I do is because I just want an honest game. You know, an honest game. That's all I ask for. And the variance of them go both ways. Sometimes it helps your sports bet. Sometimes it doesn't. But at the same time, it still adds variance.
That's terrible.
You know, this day and age, you know, for all the people that complain about replay and how they should get rid of it, over 50% of these plays, these geriatric officials don't even know what the fuck is going on. I'm serious. You know what goes through their mind? Each play. They're like, oh my God, I have no idea what just happened there. I'm just gonna say first down and just hope for the best. You know? Literally. That is exactly what goes through their minds. They can't see the speed of the game. They literally can't. I mean, you saw that in the freaking NFC playoffs. You know, changed the outcome of the whole complete game. They've been doing this for years. Get some younger people there and have a replay official always working. Have them overruling plays when they have to. Just real quick via radio. You don't even have to go through a whole replay thing where the same person that screwed up has to go back to his mistake and dishonestly say it was correct. Have one guy up there that gets paid for his performance and have him be the head official. That's all you have to do. And it can be quick. Everyone's on radio. Boom. No, pick up the flag, do this. And they say it, it's done. Doesn't have to be these 5-minute replays. Get up there and get this fixed immediately. I mean, the college football officials are better than the NFLs. They really are. All right, rant over. Moving on, the Vikings got their asses torched against the Indianapolis Colts. It was another lean of mine. My power ratings didn't quite add up. But at the same time, the Vikings defense is that bad. The Detroit Lions started out great against the Packers, 14-3. Thought that teaser was going to hit. Had them teased all the way up to plus 12.5. And what did they do? Lose by like 20 points later in that game. I mean, the Packers, I hate to say it as a Bears fan, is probably the best team in the NFC. Yes, I said that. And they're playing the Saints next week. So you'll find out if they're the best team in the NFC. But right now, the way LaFleur is calling plays. Right now, how their defense stood up against the Lions when they had to. And the Bears couldn't. The Lions should have scored last week. The Packers are the best team in the NFC right now. I have them power rated the same. But you're going to find that out next week, Monday Night Football. The Cardinals took care of business. Like we talked about, it was a premium play that we gave out. The Cardinals minus 6.5. The Dallas Cowboys was just unforgivable mistake from Atlanta. How do you not jump on that ball? The ball does not have to go to 10 yards, Atlanta, for you to grab it. All right? They sat there and watched the ball go 10 yards and watch the Cowboys jump on it. It was like the guys never played football before or never taught the rules of football. You kidding me? I don't know how Dan Quinn still has a job there. I mean, I honestly do not know how he is still the coach of the Atlanta Falcons.
So if you're from Africa, why are you white?
Oh my God, Karen, you can't just ask people why they're white.
Tampa Bay took care of Carolina, lost that total by 0.5 point. Little disappointed that Carolina couldn't put it in at the end, but that's just how the NFL goes sometimes. The Baltimore Ravens destroyed the Houston Texans. There's sharp money on the Texans. That was one I definitely did not want to get my nose in, but I did pick the wrong one. I picked Kansas City's big spread instead of picking Baltimore's. So there you go. You thought, the Texans were going to be better than the Chargers, but one team decided not to play. Probably looking back, you see how Harbaugh starts preseason games and how well he does in the beginning of the season. That's probably one tell that I should have been on the Ravens. We'll have to make up for that this week. All right, let's get into some college football misleading final scores. And to start right off, we have Boston College versus Duke. Like I mentioned before, Duke was only outgained by 23 yards that whole game. But Boston College had a 5-to-1 turnover ratio. All right. Poor red zone efficiency for Duke as well. But if you want to know the ins and outs of that game, Duke was able to drive and they would just completely fail out. So literally the scoreboard of that 20-point victory is a little bit off right there. Next one is Tulsa versus Oklahoma State. Tulsa actually outgained Oklahoma State by 1 yard, 278 to 277, yet lost by 9 points. So that was we were on Tulsa. They also had a 1-to-2 turnover ratio too, so they had an extra turnover going in their favor. Just couldn't put it away. Spencer Sanders will be watching him for the pokes and see if he gets any better this week to play versus West Virginia. Miami versus Louisville. Louisville actually outgained Miami 516 to 485, but they also had that 3-0 turnover ratio, and Miami's D was really the factor. I mean, when Miami's D felt like standing up, they did. Some of that stuff was garbage yards in the fourth quarter. I do want to mention that, but it was still a little bit closer than that, minus the turnovers. Wanted to mention that. I still upgraded Miami a lot, slightly downgraded Louisville. Miami's the better team. And Texas State versus Louisiana Monroe. Louisiana Monroe outgained Texas State 444 to 398, but a 2-to-1 turnover ratio hurt. And some of those yardage was garbage time as well. So I'm actually not going to adjust this one as well. So the more adjustment that in these misleading scores was the Tulsa, Oklahoma State, and the Boston College versus Duke game. Let's move on to college football Week 4 motivational spots. Letdown spots. None. None. No huge upsets. And no one really, none of them were like, none of the ones that won against the spread were against like a big team. It was just kind of like maybe of a conference foe, like not even necessarily a great conference foe. I guess Liberty maybe a little bit. But otherwise, I don't have any letdown spots coming in from this week. Obviously, if Georgia State would have beat Louisiana, that would have probably been a letdown spot. But there's nothing to write home about, so leave that one blank. Get up spots. Florida State needs to get up, being just that horrible Georgia Tech game. They're playing Miami. They're going to Miami. They don't want to get embarrassed. So this is a get-up spot for them. Wake Forest hosting Notre Dame needs to protect being 0-3. They're going to try to get up here and make something happen. Oklahoma in a revenge spot versus Kansas State. If you remember last year, Kansas State beat Oklahoma outright. And Oklahoma remembers that. Iowa State at TCU. I got to tell you, Iowa State needs something after that horrible Louisiana loss. And this is kind of a get-up spot for Iowa State. Louisiana Monroe needs someone to beat up on. And they're 0-2. They got their asses kicked by Army and Texas State. But the good news is they're hosting the worst team on my power ratings, UTEP. Look ahead spots. It's too early to really be too serious about this, but it's something I want to mention because you did see Kansas City in the NFL look ahead a little bit, right? Florida could be looking past Ole Miss to South Carolina. And I say could be, but take it with a grain of salt. Auburn could be looking past Kentucky to Georgia. Take that with a grain of salt. And Georgia could be looking past Arkansas to Auburn. So think about that a little bit. But it's so early. It's their first game. These kids should be excited. They shouldn't be looking past any of this when it comes to the SEC football. I just wanted to mention it to be on the safe side. Let's get into some NFL misleading final scores. And we're going to talk first about the Chargers outgained the Chiefs 479 to 414, yet lost 23-20. 1-0 turnover ratio is all. They blew that game. That would have really affected the teasers. The Cowboys outgained the Falcons 570 to 380, but only won by 1 point because of a 3-0 turnover ratio. Zeke was fumbling. Dak was fumbling. They're lucky they win that game. Jaguars outgained the Titans 480 to 354 and lost by 3 points. A 2-0 turnover ratio hurt that. Titans just kept him in the game. It wasn't even like garbage yards. It was literally the Jaguars kind of working. And the Panthers outgained the Bucks 427 to 339, but that's a lot of garbage yards. The 2-0 turnover ratio hurt, so I'm not going to adjust the power ratings there. Motivational spots, letdown spots, really none. Like I said, if the Chargers would have beat the Chiefs, it would have been one. If the Falcons would have beat the Cowboys, it might have been one, but nothing there. Get up spots, there's a few of them. Texans at Steelers, they're desperate for a win. Can't be 0-3. Sean Watson there, geez. The Falcons hosting the Bears are desperate for a W. The Bengals and Eagles will put forth big efforts and try to get that first win. The Dolphins are looking to upset Jacksonville. I mean, all the hype's in Jacksonville, not the Dolphins, right? And look ahead spots. The Patriots could be looking past the Raiders to the Chiefs. That's the only really look ahead spot I have. There's no way the Chiefs are looking past the Ravens to the Patriots. So there you go. And the last thing that we have before we get into fantasy football with D Nasty is our college football week 4 free play for you guys. And I got a good one. FIU versus Liberty. Liberty -7. I think the totals just came out, but I didn't write it down. Let's get right into this. It's not a total play. Did you guys see what Liberty did to Western Kentucky last weekend? This was no accident. It wasn't, right? It was no, it seems now to make sense more to me why Liberty won. They wanted to play bad this year. You remember their coaches talking about it? This team wants to play. Well, they wanted to play because they're freaking good. All right? That's why they wanted to play. Liberty outgained the Hilltoppers, who the Hilltoppers are supposed to be the second best team in Conference USA, 487 yards to 291. I mean, they spanked them on the box score.
And my deep runs deep, so deep, put her ass to sleep.
Just an ass whooping. Now they get to face one of the worst teams in Conference USA in FIU, who ranks 122nd in returning production with a new quarterback because James Morgan is gone. Florida International also lost their awesome field goal kicker who transferred to the Miami Hurricanes in Jose Borregales. And if you watched that Miami-Louisville game, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. I gave this out earlier to premiums at -6.5. Liberty is going to win in a landslide. I'm taking Liberty -7, and I'm making this a 3-star premium play.
You're ridiculously good looking.
All right, well, let's move into some fantasy football week 3 with our guy, D Nasty. All right, and now it is time for a little fantasy football week 3. And lots of things happen week 2. We got our guy, D Nasty, back to talk about a lot that's going on. I feel injured just looking at these injuries, Dave.
Oh, my God. I think I just injured my finger just clicking on all these different injuries.
I cannot believe it. It's like maybe this is why they need preseason to just kind of get the joints moving and going and, toughen them up a little bit, and now they don't have much practice, and practice has been more and more limited throughout the years because people complained, and now there's no preseason football. Well, this is what you're going to get. Dave, don't you have some crazy stat on what happened this week?
Yeah, over 17 ACL tears just this week. Over 30 different key injuries this week as well. Most injuries ever in an NFL week.
My God, it's just brutal. And you know what? The first 2 draft picks, we can just start with them. The first 2 consensus fantasy draft picks. Of course, except for me, I picked Zeke but for a second. But either way, most leagues took the top 2 first, Dave. And instead of going you first and me, let's go 2 apiece and then go from there so we're not redundant. There's just so many of them I'm not going to remember. So I'll start with those ones. Saquon Barkley tore his ACL against the Bears. I saw that. I almost thought that he tore it the play before that too. I saw him get tackled really low, and it's just someone hit him in the knees. It might have been Fuller, and his legs kicked out. And I was like, ooh, that was hard. Then he goes the next play and makes some weird cut, and then freaking kind of danced a little bit and got thrown down. And then right then and there, you knew it, man, the way he was grabbing that knee. And I personally think he played on a torn ACL that last play. It was really interesting, really sad. And Christian McCaffrey is got a high ankle sprain, I believe. And it looks like he's out 4 to 6 from what I'm seeing.
That's what they're saying, yeah. He says he's trying to beat it back, but I doubt he will. Those are pretty nasty.
Those are nasty, and there's no reason for running backs to do that. They have to cut. It's not a quarterback there, But, dude, yeah, I feel bad for Saquon because I like him. I like him a lot, and he's out for a year now, the whole year. So I feel bad for the guy. It's not. I'm not going to take credit for anything like that for Zeke. It's like it's bullshit that he's missing the whole fantasy. I'm kind of pissed about it, to be honest with you. Such a Saquon fan, but. Sad that it happened, and there's going to be some waiver wires to make up for that. Who you have next, Dave?
All right, and then for CMC and for Barkley, I did have CMC in your league, and I lost by 0.9 points this week because he got injured. Yeah. So very sad to see him get injured, and Barkley too. I have him in a league as well. Right. But 2 other key injuries, actually on the defensive side, I know we normally don't talk about this, but these are 2 very key injuries for the 49ers. Nick Bosa, one of the top IDP players out there, and his running mate on the line, Solomon Thomas, both tore their ACLs this week as well.
Oh my God, really? Yeah, that's right. It was. So I saw the report. It was most likely torn. I cannot believe Bosa and Thomas. Right? Cannot believe that. And what's the other guy? What's his name? Ford.
Ford is right now too, but he doesn't have a torn ACL. He should be back this week actually.
Yeah, well, that's good. At least he'll be back a little bit. But, man, what a hit to the Niners defense there. And they're kind of already beat up with Sherman out for a while, right? So that's bad. I have 2 more then. Paris Campbell's hurt. PCL, it says. I'm not sure if it's torn. I didn't see a report on that.
They said strained, but they said probably it's still at least 3 to 4 weeks.
Okay, strained. Thank you. Yeah. All right. Strained. PCL and out about 3 to 4 weeks. So there'll be some guys to pick up, I'm sure, for that. And then I have Cam Akers, and Cam Akers hurt his ribs, and he was out this game, and he's probably week to week from what I heard, Dave.
Yes, that's what they're saying. Yeah, week to week right now. The two I have are two Broncos, actually. I got them in some of my dynasty leagues. I was very sad to see both of them go down this week. Drew Lock, one of the quarterbacks I did like a lot this year, sprained his AC joint or his shoulder. He's going to be missing 4 to 5 weeks, they said. And then the person he was throwing to as well, they didn't think it was going to be serious, but actually was announced today. Cortland Sutton, starting wide receiver for the Broncos, torn ACL as well. ACL theme a little bit tonight, but he's gone for the season as well.
Was that the same knee that was hurt?
No, it was the other one, actually.
Oh, God, bad luck for him, too. Holy smokes, right?
Yeah.
Oh, my God. Look, I guess it's good that Denver drafted a couple wide receivers then, right?
Well, yeah, it wasn't his knee that was hurt; it was his shoulder. He had a sprain.
Oh, you're right. It was an AC joint. That's what it was. AC joint in his shoulder. Okay, so torn ACL now. What was the one you said before, Sutton?
It was Drew Lock, quarterback for the Broncos. His shoulder is the same thing as Sutton had, but he's going to miss 4 to 5 weeks because it's in his throwing shoulder.
Right, for sure. Okay, so Drew Lock is going to be out for a while. I have Raheem Mostert and Tevin Coleman, both 49ers. You know, so when I drafted Mostert in both our leagues that I'm in, I also drafted Tevin Coleman, and now he's out. So everyone's just going to be freaking fighting for Jerick McKinnon, and we'll get into that. But that was just bad luck, too, for the Niners. They are so beat up. I just cannot believe it, Dave.
Might as well talk about Garoppolo, too, while we're at it.
Yeah, you might as well. I mean, at least Raheem's going to be back in 3-4 weeks. MCL sprain. Tevin Coleman's the same thing. That's what I'm hearing. But Garoppolo has got a high ankle sprain, doesn't he?
Yes.
Yeah, and I think he might be back next week, from what I'm hearing.
Possibly. That he's week to week right now. Yeah.
Yeah, and the reason they say is because they're going to tape him up as a quarterback. He's not going to be taken out of the pocket though. So if you're a pass rusher, just know you're not going to be afraid of him running. That's not good for him. So I personally would sit him another week, but they do have the Giants right this week. So you figure they should hopefully be able to beat them with a backup. You know, the Giants aren't too good, and that score was a lot closer than it should have been against the Bears. Okay, well, Cortland Sutton you had already. Sterling Shepard has a turf toe injury. He's week to week because of that. Turf toes are pretty nasty. And then Paris Campbell. Did we say Paris already?
Yep.
Okay. Darnell. Nope, that's the main ones I have. I know there's a lot of defensive players, isn't there, Dave?
Oh, yeah, and then there's Devontae Adams, too. He left with a hamstring injury, so we want to keep an eye on that one. He's one of the top receivers out there. So he's another guy. Hopefully he's able to play this week. A couple of the other key guys for defense. Malik Hooker, safety for the Indianapolis Colts, torn Achilles, so he's done for the year. And then Anthony Barr, the starting linebacker for the Vikings, who was a Pro Bowler over the last couple of years, he's actually done for the season with a torn pectoral muscle, which just sounds painful.
Well, we're not too many IDP leagues out there, but yeah, there's also just a bunch of Seahawks that got hurt too. One of the Seahawks is out. Their nickel corner, I forgot his name. He's out for the year too. It's just tons of people. It's been brutal week 2, injury week 2. I almost feel like injury week 2 happened last year a little bit too. It wasn't nearly as bad as this week, obviously. All right.
Two other ones to note, too, would be Will Fuller, the wide receiver for the Texans, has a hamstring.
He's always hurt, man.
Yes.
He's always banged up. You know,
that guy.
He's week to week. But just like when we talked in our draft, it's like, what the hell? Will Fuller, it's like, play a full season. Never.
And another key one was Tyrod Taylor. If you have Abear, if you can pick him up possibly, he's a nice young rookie.
Herbert, you mean Justin Herbert? Yeah, I know his name looks weird. So, and Tyrod Taylor was just an injection to take pain away, and then the injection went bad, and it probably made him all paranoid in his chest, and that's why he sat out. But he's fine. He's in play, So that was a weird injury. I'll tell you, they get an injection, but it happened to Jerome Bettis back in 2002 in the playoffs. The Pittsburgh Steelers, he missed he missed the playoff game because of an injection. Same thing. So little history for you guys there. Okay, well, let's get into our waiver wires then. We beat the heck out of injuries almost as bad as the NFL beat the heck out of their players. Well, let's go 2-2 again, Dave. I kind of like doing that. Dion Lewis, running back, is obviously the biggest waiver wire pickup of the week because Saquon's out for the whole year. And then Mike Davis, Dave, he's going to be at least playing 4 weeks for Carolina. And even though he's no CMC, they have so many plays for CMC, they're going to have to give him a lot of touches, don't they?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Who you got?
And then I got Jerick McKinnon for the 49ers. We just talked about him briefly. He found the end zone, including a very nice 77 rushing yards on and he had 3 catches as well. And then he did have a touchdown this past week on a long run. And then the other guy, too, that you might want to take a look at picking up is Devontae Freeman. Giants worked him out today. The rumor is he will be signing and he will be the lead back the next couple weeks once he gets settled in there. So he could be a Pro Bowl player the rest of the year for them. I like him a lot more than Dion Lewis or Wayne Gellman there.
Well, he's bigger than Dion Lewis, but Dion Lewis will still play a role. I think it'll still be more split, and I think Dion's still going to get a lot of those passes that Saquon did. He knows the playbook. Devontae Freeman, I have still, and I've been holding on to him forever in our Dynasty League, and finally it's paying off. I guess there's a little silver lining there to all these injuries, but he's got to get signed by somebody now. Yeah, that's the way I look at it. All this happened so early. He's just been holding out. He's finally going to get some sort of a contract, it seems like. But running backs are a dime a dozen, so we'll see what happens. Good call on that. I'm going to go with Jeff Wilson from the Niners, too. And, I mean, what if McKinnon gets hurt? McKinnon's going to get some rest, too. Jeff Wilson's got to get touches,
Exactly.
I think Jeff Wilson. And if you're desperate for a quarterback, Jeff Driscoll, sorry, Dave, but I'm not so sure that Drew Lock is better than him.
Driscoll did actually look good. I'll give you that. But I think Lock is better. But Driscoll is a pretty athletic quarterback, and he could actually do very well the next couple weeks. He's one of my guys that I have on my waiver wire pickups this week.
All right, so you had him too. Who do you have next?
I got Keelan Cole. Everyone thought that it was a fluke the first week when he caught 5 targets, but he keeps playing well. He led Jacksonville with 7 targets, and he targeted DJ Shark, and he had a touchdown this past week. So he's a receiver I like this week. Isaiah Ford, even with Devontae Parker playing this week, he had 7 catches for 76 yards on 9 targets. So 2 young receivers you might want to look at picking up this week.
Yep, they're good calls there. I agree with all that. Ford should be in most leagues for sure. Keelan Cole should be too. I'm sure a lot of people didn't bite last week on him. So good calls there. I think we said Michael Pittman before, but I have to stress it now that Paris Campbell's out for a while. I mean, their matchup is just too juicy against the Jets. Shit. You got to play Michael Pittman. You got to pick him up. Now for the Cam Akers injury, obviously Darrell Henderson and if not Malcolm Brown, if you didn't already have him, if he's available on waivers. Brown should have been scooped up last week anyway. But, Darrell Henderson now, he's getting touches. He's got a lot of points last week. And then I have, we talked about Herbert already, didn't we? Justin Herbert. Yeah, speculative. I say speculative with Herbert because I just think Tyrod Taylor is not as good. If he busts this week and he's going to have an easy Carolina team, he's done. I think Herbert's the better player. He's going to be. He's bigger, taller, he's fast. Herbert.
Oh, he had 300 yards with filling in for Taylor last week. So that's why I said I like him as well because, like you say, he's more athletic and he's definitely their future there. They're going to be going to him the next couple of weeks if Tyrod struggles at all, for sure.
Oh, for sure. Totally agree. Who you have next?
I got a couple tight ends here, actually. I got Jordan Reed, who filled in for George Kittle admirably. 7 catches for 50 yards and 3 touchdowns. So definitely on 8 targets. And then another tight end, Dalton Schultz. I picked him up in a couple of my dynasty leagues this past week. He blew up. He had 10 targets, 8 catches for 98 yards and a touchdown. So definitely pick him up if he's still out there. And Chris Herndon, he's owned in 46% of leagues, but I look for him to come on within the next couple weeks with the schedule that they have.
Yeah, if his quarterback can throw to him, he doesn't seem to be able to throw. Doesn't seem to be able to throw to anybody this year. Oh, poor USC. Man, guys from USC are just man, Darnold, are you an NFL quarterback or not? I think it's not looking good for him. So I agree. I had Jordan Reed, but I wonder if it's just Kittle being out. But at the same time, they don't have a lot to throw to. I think Jordan Reed's going to play a role in that offense. I agree. I have Golden Tate for the Slayton injury. If he's on waivers, Golden Tate's available in a decent amount of leagues. Our rule is 50%, and I'm not going to lie, I didn't check. I'm a little under the weather, but I wrote Golden Tate anyway, just in case. And Dalton Schultz was my call from last week, Dave. So I'm happy that he came up, and he was close to my nasty sleeper, because my nasty sleeper sucked last week. Right? Nyheim Hines got like one freaking point. And I did say to pick up Dalton Schultz for the Jarwin injury, and he had 18 fantasy points in 0.5 PPR leagues. So what an awesome pickup that is. Dallas going to use him, Dave. You know?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, there's just so many plays for Jarwin. All right, I have one more speculative one. You might have a couple more. Darnell Mooney from the Bears. He caught a touchdown, caught a couple decent targets. Now, deeper leagues is what I'm saying. I don't think I'd spend any money on him yet. Dynasty leagues for sure, if he's available. But Allen Robinson's complaining about a contract. And the way that Mooney played, you wonder if Ryan Pace is just going to trade Allen Robinson all of a sudden right off the bat, or just piss him off and Allen Robinson's not going to play well, or just not play, hold out or whatever. That happens. And Darnell Mooney, he's a speedster. He was from Tulane. He looks the part so far. I'm like,
yeah, I definitely like him. That's a nice pick up. I like him a lot. Two other quarterbacks I had too was Mitch Trubisky for the Bears. Only owned him 7% of leagues right now. It's your boy. He actually has a nice matchup coming up this week against the Falcons, which we'll talk about here shortly. And then Derek Carr, who had 3 touchdowns tonight in the Death Star opening of their stadium. He's only owned in 17% of leagues right now.
Hey, I totally agree with you there, man. A little bit of love for old Mitch. He doesn't get a lot of love because, once the Bears get a lead, he disappears, and then the other teams come back. I don't know how that happens. He starts throwing into like double coverage and shit. So it's like, what the fuck are you doing? You wonder if it's Ryan Pace or him, not Ryan Pace, Matt Nagy, or him making these stupid decisions. Run some play action or something when you're ahead. Jesus,
Yeah.
What are you doing? Trying to all these trick concocted Andy Reid plays. What do you think you are, man? Just run some play, for Christ's sake, man. But at the same time, Falcons matchup. I mean, I can see the Bears. They could be down by 20 points and just tossing the ball, and Mitch might hit a few targets here. So he's got a lot of targets over there, especially with his tight ends, Cole Kmet and what's his face that we got from the Packers last year?
Jimmy Graham, baby.
Jimmy Graham. All right. Well, I think we hit the waiver wire pretty hard, right? So
yeah, we did. Let's go on to the.
All right, week 3 non-starters that trends. I have non-starters that trend to must-starts. So let's go 2 apiece, Dave. Why don't you go first?
All right, sounds good. I have one that you wouldn't think of, but even though it's a crappy matchup, and by the way, the Thursday night matchups are just horrible these first couple weeks. Last week's Cleveland game, oh my God. And now Cleveland and then Cincinnati, and now we got the Dolphins-Jaguars on Thursday night.
You read my mind. I tweeted that out earlier, and a lot of people got a kick out of it. I mean, Cleveland versus Cincinnati, and then Miami versus Jacksonville. Who's making these Thursday night schedules here, man? I mean, after COVID, do we deserve this? Can't you have anything better than this? Oh,
exactly.
Unreal. So,
but anyways, in that matchup, though, I have 2 guys that I do like. James Robinson and Myles Gaskin. Myles Gaskin should be on the waiver wire pickup list this week as well. He did play another big role this week as well, even though we didn't think he would. So I have Myles Gaskin, the running back for the Dolphins, and James Robinson, who's actually looked very well, the rookie for the Jaguars.
There you go. James Robinson did look good, didn't he? So I like that one. All right, I have Austin Eckler. I'm not sure if everyone was starting Austin Eckler, but he was like one of those flex backs possibly, and didn't do so well week 1, but he's got a really easy matchup against Carolina. And I kind of like the fact that, now that Tyrod Taylor is going to be back, at least they have a lot of plays set from him to Eckler instead of like Herbert tossing it down the field like you saw against a Kansas City team last week. I think Eckler is going to be a non-starter trending to a must-start. And I think I wrote Julian Edelman. I don't know if people are starting him. I would. I mean, Cam's throwing to him, and Cam's actually looking way better than I thought. I mean, now I want to say there's a caveat. The 2 defensive lines they faced, Seattle Pro Football Focus ranked them 32nd coming into 2020. Their D-line, because they lost Clowney and a couple others, and they ranked Miami 30th. So the Patriots haven't really faced a tough defense yet, and as far as that's concerned, but we'll see what happens. I think Julian Edelman is a must-start every week. Who do you have next?
All right, I have a couple guys we talked about recently here. I have Mike Davis for the Carolina Panthers. Even though he's going up against a tough Chargers defense, I do like him this week, especially receiving the ball out of the backfield. Then I have Darius Slayton for the Giants. If Shepard is out, I do like them to go to him. And with Barkley out too, I think they will throw the ball a little bit more as well. So I do like Slayton in the matchup against the 49ers with all their injuries.
Yeah, I agree with you. If he's okay, right?
Okay, it's Shepard that's injured.
Oh, Shepard, right. Okay. So I have the whole Colts team against the New York Jets, and if you have anyone, play them. Even Nyheim Hines that busted last week. Play everybody you possibly can. Even play the guys that retired against the Jets. So I wrote Michael Pittman too, but obviously it doesn't matter. I think T.Y. Hilton's going to have a hell of a game too. A lot of people bench T.Y. Hilton. He's a little older now, right? So I think it's his time to have a huge game. Larry Fitzgerald, believe it or not, he's playing that awful Lions defense that we saw that couldn't cover anybody because pretty much their cornerbacks are all hurt. So really like Larry this week for a flyer, right? It's always going to be Hopkins, but this could be a flyer week for Larry. Got to remember Larry, buddy.
I actually had Larry on my list. I was actually going to talk about him next, but you stole my thunder. But I'm going to go with a couple other different guys. I'm going with David Montgomery from the Bears, who I think could thrive against the horrible Falcons defense. And I do like Jerry Jeudy now with Sutton out for the year. He's going to move up to the number 1 guy, and I think Driscoll will look his way quite a bit this week.
I love it because I have Jetty as well, Dave. I have Jetty, and Tampa's pass defense is still bad, and they're going to be using him for sure. And I actually wrote Anthony Miller for the Bears versus that bad Falcons D. And the thing I see about Anthony Miller is he's going to get the easier matchup on the corners, and he's also due for a good week. He missed a touchdown. He had a horrible last week. They're going to bounce him back, and so this Falcons defense is going to be offense is going to score a lot of points, which means the Bears are going to have to score a lot of points. It's going to be a high flying game, like in Anthony Miller. What do you have next?
All right, I got Alan Lazard from the Packers. The Las Vegas Raiders walked all over the Saints defense tonight. I look for Aaron Rodgers to shred them as well. I do like Alan Lazard in the matchup. And then Kenny Galladay, he is coming back from injury, but a lot of people might have forgot about him. But I do like him against the Cardinals as well.
Well, there you go. Not too bad. I have James Conner versus the Texans run D, and I suppose he's a starter, but he's going to have a big week this week. The Texans' run D has been, I think, their second worst right now, but they did play like the 2 hardest teams, Kansas City and Baltimore.
It was just a tough matchup.
How they get fucked so bad? Then now that they have to go to Pittsburgh. I mean, Jesus, who made the schedule? Poor J.J. Watt, man, having to deal with that. Jeez, poor guy. All right, I have Dalton Schultz guy we already talked about here, versus that awful Seattle pass D. Seattle's the worst defense against the pass completely. So I have Dalton Schultz as a must start this week, man.
I like it. That's all I had for this week.
All right, cool. I have Deion Lewis there. I have Mitch Trubisky there. And that's pretty much all I have for must starts. I'm sure there's a few others, but you guys will have to go out and search for those. Busts, Dave. Let's start out with some busts. I'll let you go first.
One of the ones I do have for a bust, Teddy Bridgewater. The Chargers D looked very good last week against a very explosive Kansas City Chiefs offense. So I don't like Teddy Bridgewater this week, and a tough matchup against a good Chargers defense. And another tough defense is the Patriots. The Patriots have given up quite a few points, but I do like the Patriots defense, and I think the Raiders will struggle a little bit against Belichick's defense this week. So I'm downgrading David Carr this week as well.
Okay. And they have that huge win against the Saints. It's almost a letdown spot now for them, almost. Maybe.
And they're at New England, too, so that's another thing, too, that I like there as well.
Yeah. I can't bet the Raiders this week. So I have Josh Jacobs as a bust. Same kind of thing, same thought process, right? Versus the Patriots run D. And I wrote that before they even won this game tonight. And want to just quick mention my Waller the Baller play was awesome. I had him on the waiver wire last week. Not the waiver wire, there's the trending up for starters. So Waller the Baller had a huge game this week. David Johnson I have as a bust against the Steelers run D, Dave.
Yep, that was my next one, actually.
All right, go ahead.
And then I'm going to say Todd Gurley against the Bears. Bears have been playing good defense the last couple of weeks. I think Matt Ryan will still have a good day through the air, but I don't think Todd Gurley will have a good week this week, so I'm downgrading him as well. And then the Colts, actually, against the Jets, I'm downgrading any Jets running back against the Colts defense as well.
For sure, 100% agree. You can't. I don't even know how you can start the Jets against a lot of teams. And the Colts defense is good, so good luck with that if you're starting there. That's what worries me. But maybe Chris Herndon, like you said before, is like their only scapegoat there. Let's hope. See if
all the receivers are injured, essentially. We forgot to talk about that. Perryman and Hogan are both out, and then Crowder's already injured as well.
He might come back, but that's all they have. You know, it's looking really bad. I actually have, sorry to do this to you, Dave, but Aaron Jones against the Saints run D. But now that I saw how bad they were against Jacobs, I'm not sure. I'm not 100% sure of that. Aaron Jones has got a lot of gadget plays with the Packers too, so I'm gonna tread lightly and say you'd have to have some serious better options if you're not gonna play Aaron Jones against the Saints runs deep. But you also got to imagine this is in New Orleans in the Dome. They play way better there, you know. So Aaron Jones, he's going to have it a little bit tougher, I think, them coming off a loss like that. Sammy Watkins against Baltimore's pass D. I think it's going to be a lot of Tyreek Hill. They're going to need the speed guy, more or less. I think Watkins is going to be able to be covered. You know, Watkins was fast at one point, but he's not Tyreek Hill fast, right, Dave?
I agree. And then the other one, too, I had for Kansas City was Edwards-Helaire. I think the Ravens they added quite a few pieces on defense, so I'm downgrading him as well a little bit this week.
All right. That's all I have for Bus.
Mine as well.
Oh, Melvin Gordon versus Tampa's run D. Tampa's got the second or third best run D, I believe. So Melvin Gordon might have a rough week. And plus, they might be throwing a lot this the second half if they're going to catch up to Tampa. Yeah, that's it. Let's get into our nasty sleeper, Dave. And you said one of mine already, so I'm liking it. Who's your nasty sleeper?
I'm going with Dalton Schultz. I like him against the poor Seahawks defense. I'm going with Dalton Schultz as my nasty sleeper of the week this week.
Oh, there you go, because I'm going with Jerry Jeudy versus the Tampa Bay Bucks. I think he's the one that's going to benefit the most from the Sutton injury and Tampa Bay's terrible cornerbacks. I believe that Jetty's ready for a huge game. I don't care if it's Driscoll throwing. Driscoll looked fine last week, and this is in Denver. And they're just going to be throwing a whole lot the second half, you know, because you know Brady's going to get his, right? And, and so is Evans. I don't know if Godwin's going to be back, but they still have enough weapons there with Gronk, O.J. Howard, and, you know, what's his name, Miller. They got a lot of people there. So, awesome, Dave. well, we covered it, man. There was a lot going on this week in fantasy, so hopefully everyone gets their waivers in tomorrow and get some of those good players that we talked about, bud.
Definitely. Have a great week, everyone.
All right. Thanks a lot, Dave. That was D Nasty. Make sure you guys check us out at the Odds Breakers. If you have any fantasy questions or questions in general for the podcast, please feel free to tweet us at the Odds Breakers. Everyone have a fantastic week. Go get some winners.